rainforest regions of Canada. And I have the challenge and the privilege of sort of working and to get different speakers to come together for these webinar series. And I really appreciate your willingness to join and hope I'm not spamming you with emails. But if you'd like to be added to the list, just drop me a note after. Or if you'd like to be removed from the list, also drop me a note after. But the current theme for this spring is we're looking at our Indigenous conservation efforts and work being done by Indigenous communities across the Prairie region. And we heard last month from Matthew Munson and on Indigenous protected and conserved areas, and really pleased to hear to have Alvin join us today. So Alvin, I will turn it over to you and enjoy yourself as you present. It's a friendly crowd, and really looking forward to then some of the questions after too. So take it away, sir. Thank you so much.
Right on, thank you. Okay, Idamix Ganatani, Nutta Innasaxon. My Blackfoot name is Holy Descent. And I said good morning or hello, good morning. And then my Blackfoot name. So yeah, Alvin First Strider. I come from the Kainai Nation, and I'm a descendant of the Amskapi Pikani or Blackfeet in Montana. So I'm from 2 tribes of the Blackfoot Confederacy. And today I'm just here to talk to you a little bit about our projects that we do on Kainai Sakoi, Blood Tribe land, and how we are using Indigenous land management practices to holistically give back and restore our grasslands on Kainai Sakoi. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here. Thank you to the PHJV for sharing this virtual space, and thank you all for signing on today. So just a little background of what the Blood Tribe Land Management Environmental Protection Division function, or what we do. So we focus and monitor and report
Sorry, Alvin, can I just interrupt for a second? I think your presentation needs to click ahead for one moment. We're off. We see the screen of the Teams link here, so.
Yeah, we're not seeing your presentation. Can you go ahead and share that again, please?
Hold on, I'll stop presenting and then re-present.
And while I so rudely interrupted, just turn your videos off, folks, if you're able, for bandwidth. Tom, you look good, but we'll I appreciate it, just for bandwidth for some people.
You able to see it?
Yes,
that's
thank
perfect,
you.
Alvin. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, just a little background on the Environmental Protection Division's function. So we're monitoring and reporting back, collecting data on our blood reserve ecosystems and environment. The blood reserve is made up of multiple ecosystems, and we're trying to holistically collect data on each ecosystem to get a better picture of what's going on. So we're developing and managing conservation projects, collecting Western methodologies and data collection, but incorporating our Blackfoot ecological knowledge as a foundation of where our projects are coming from. So yeah, we try to get our community involved through community-based monitoring, and we're trying to fully develop that. Our division is shortly staffed. We have at this moment we have 2 new hires, but we're full-time staff. There's 3 of us. So, and we have one of the largest reserves in Canada, and we need our membership to help us monitor our ecosystems. So I'm just going to introduce our staff here. Kanzi Fox, she's not in the picture. She's the manager. And then we have Marcia. She's one of the lead environmental technicians. Myself, and then in the blue there's Truman Big Swallow. He is recently hired on as the carnivore species at risk technician. Then we have Colby Sansperio, who will be a summer student for a few months until the end of March. So we have a little bit of staff, and we're going to start collecting data here. Excited for the field season. It's been a long winter being in the office, and can't wait to get outdoors. So yeah, blood reserve. We have two registered lands under reserve status: the blood reserve 148, the main reserve, and 148A. So the main reserve is the big area there, right there. If you guys could see that, and then our timber limits is down here by the U.S. border, the 49th parallel, and it borders Waterton Lakes National Park, which is over here. And then our little 7.5 square mile timber limits, where we do monitoring as well. So most of our monitoring takes place in the north end, which is one of our largest grassland areas in green here. And at one time, it was considered one of the largest unfenced tracts of grassland, but has since been fenced up into pastures. So yeah, our focus is on preventing ecosystem loss and degradation, because that impacts our culturally significant sites and impacts the Blackfoot way of life. Our prairie landscape has some multiple stories and traditions that go with it, and when those are tilled up, we lose those pieces of our history and the pieces of our culture, which affects us as people as well. So we're trying to prevent that, and a lot of it is driven by the late 1800s, the buffalo ecocide, and trying to control First Nations people across North America and drive them onto reservations. So that colonization policy of assimilate and be stagnant in the landscape was huge on Indigenous people, and it displaced a lot of us, and we lost that kinship and interrelationship with our landscape and our multiple ecosystems that we have relationships with. So yeah, just a little background on ecocultural restoration. It's the process of restoring just those relationships that were historical from pre-contact or pre-treaty, and we're trying to rejuvenate those relationships with the First Nations and our kin, the elements of the landscape. So we're trying to focus braiding that or aligning Western science and Blackfoot ways of life into our management and the way we do things on the Ghana Sakwe. So we're hoping to revitalize and create that educational and awareness piece around how we are incorporating the two together to manage our landscape from a holistic perspective. So this is just a little background on a couple of our projects that we're doing. I'll just read this quote from Robin Wall Kimmer out of Braiding Sweetgrass. Traditional ecological knowledge is knowledge and practices passed down from generation to generation, informed by cultural memories, sensitivity to change, and values that include reciprocity. So that's kind of our foundation of where we're coming from. So we have a project called the Six Stucky Project, where we're looking at beaver mimicry. Six Stucky is beaver in Blackfoot. So we're looking at beaver mimicry to help rejuvenate our tributaries and groundwater ecosystems, living with beaver on the landscape, coexisting incorporating those Western science coexisting techniques, such as pond levelers and, like I said, beaver dam analogs. And then we have grassland restoration sites where we're restoring our grasslands. One site is restoring cultivated field back into grasslands, which is it's going to be a slow process, but it's an exciting process as we see it develop. We have northern leopard frog. We've actually have an isolated population that we thought they were extirpated on the blood reserve, but we stumbled upon a isolated population of northern leopard frogs, and we are trying to reintroduce them back to our timber limits and our main reserves. So we're hoping that that population can serve as a population that we can draw upon. We have a prescribed burn. We've actually had two sites. On one of the grassland restoration sites, one of our local land occupants did a little burn to help control the grasses, the invasive grasses that the cultivation has brought in, and the invasive weeds. And then we've done one up in our blood tribe timber limits with the help of Waterton Lakes National Parks. Their fire agency has supported us in getting the capacity to do those prescribed burns. And then another main focus is that with that restoration is having that local native plants and seeds. So we're looking at growing our own plants that are collected and grown from the reserve that we could utilize to help rejuvenate our landscape. And then targeted grazing. We're surrounded by 3 rivers that continually bring in outside invasive species. Each river has its own invasive species. The Belly has brought in the Russian knapweed. St. Mary's River has brought in leafy spurge, and then the Old Man, because it's connected to the two, has brought in both. So yeah, we're heavily impacted by these invasive species that have come in through floods, and we're trying to utilize targeted grazing, such as the goats down here. So yeah, that's just a number of our little projects. We have a carnivore species at risk project where we're looking at collecting Blackfoot ecological knowledge to develop Blackfoot Bear Smart program and a carnivore program on the reserve. We do participatory video and a number of other projects. But yeah, this is just a few of our top projects that we're focusing on. So this is the Kainai Iinii Rematriation area. So right here, my clicker's not working. Right here would be pasture 13, which is being fenced right now. Pasture 12, where the Iinii are being held. Pasture 11 would be this pasture right here. And then pasture 10 down here. They're originally supposed to go down here, but because of the invasive leafy spurge, we're trying to control that before we release them down into there. And then this is just a map of all our data points that we've collected. So we do migratory bird surveys, with soil samples, traditional plant surveys, range health surveys. We have pitfall traps looking at the insect distribution and density within and then we collected baseline data for a number of years and then released these our Iinii into these pastures, which has been very exciting. They've grown so much since we've released them in 2020, and it's quite healing to see them back out on the landscape. So yeah, this is just a little breakdown of our Iinii rematriation biophysical surveys. So we've done 100 core soil samples in pasture 10 through 13, which looks like this on the left. And we're going to be getting out there at the end of the month here to do another soil core sampling. Can't wait to get out of the office. This is what our range health looks like, our range transects, dung beetles that we're looking for and collecting. We've done water quality analysis on our dugouts. And then this is just the landscape coming back. This is Sawagasi antelope. They haven't been seen in the north end for a decade or so, but they come back when the Iinii come back, like a year or two before, and it seems like they were just waiting for them to arrive. And then we've done reptile hibernacular surveys to look at rattlesnake populations and just to see what was out there before releasing them and to monitor the trends and changes as they go. So our bird surveys, we've had 345 observations, like that's per year. We get roughly like 48 species throughout the spring birding, migratory bird survey season. We have a number of SARA listed species that move throughout the landscape. I calculated at least 80% of the SARA listed species at least use the blood tribe at one time or the other, whether it be spring or fall migration. So our grasslands are very important for these species. The ferruginous hawk, they nest in our north end and along one of the cliff areas along the St. Mary's River. So our water quality, one of our pastures is intolerable for livestock drinking. So we're trying to look at ways to restore that to acceptable levels to introduce our Iinii into that pasture. The other pastures, they're acceptable levels, so we're just monitoring their intake. But what we've noticed is they'll go for the snow before they'll go for the water. They seem to like that snow and chewing up the ice, and they're pretty interesting to watch as they get out on the landscape. This was our spring burn last year in the timber limits. We rematriated fire as well as rematriated the Iinii to our landscape. And this was drawn from elder interviews and other community sessions that we've had, was that missing element of fire. So we're trying to work with these elements that have been suppressed and that were a part of the landscape for so long, and then they got suppressed and it caused our ecosystems to go out of whack. So we're trying to reintroduce these cycles, these natural cycles of fire, the Iinii grazing, and utilize them to help manage our ecosystems. So we burnt a little area just to test, just to get that public perception of how fire can be utilized as a tool, as a friend. And we are looking at doing a bigger burn this spring in the same area, but just a little further south. And then our traditional plants, we do multiple interviews with our elders, and they let us know what's happening on the landscape and what's being hard to find, what's missing on this landscape that used to be there 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. So that's one of our main focuses when we do get out on the landscape, is how to monitor these and document them where they are, and then collect their seed and look at ways to replenish these, especially the ones that we use for culturally significant. Yeah, somebody's shuffling papers. It's kind of. But yeah, so we're looking at collecting seeds to help rejuvenate these areas and yeah, help restore them for our future generations. This is from this past spring with the Old Man Watershed Council. We did some willow planting. A lot of our willows are becoming harder to find, or they're not usable for our ceremonial purposes. So we're looking at replenishing those um, willow species that we particularly use. There's only two, and that's what we use, and that's what was given to us from uh, Creator, and that's what we have to use. So we're trying to replenish these willow species along our riverbanks. This is just in standoff, and yeah, we've done it the past couple of years, and we're also trying to um, create stream bank stability, and that um, we're losing our banks from erosion, and willows and these riparian areas are missing those species that grow there just because of the way our waters are managed these days. So yeah, this is the background of our willows. Like I said, we only use the two, rabbit and diamond willow, and they're very important for cleansing us as a person and rejuvenating our spirits. Um, and so if they're becoming harder to find, that that that's a big problem, especially for the people that are just getting back into our cultural ways, reconnecting with our aquaguts. And if they can't find these species, then like there's certain protocols that we can't cross water with them and stuff. So when we're gonna have sweat, so we only have what we have to work with within our reserve boundary, and that's something that's a high priority on our list is how do we rejuvenate these species and make sure that they're here for forever. Um, Another focus is, so our main focus is being those grassland guardians. Whenever there's disturbance, how do we rejuvenate those areas, restore them? Uh, in the middle there, we're planting some fescue seed and other species. In this fire break, there was a wildland fire that was started from a farmer in a cultivated field, and it went through our north end grassland. So, and to prevent it, the farmers just went ripping through the grassland without like consultating it with us when there was a highway that probably could have stopped it, like just off the picture here. So yeah, finding ways to have best management practices promoted to these farmers, especially when there's other techniques that they could have used instead of tilling up this land. Like this land is going to take forever to go back to the way it was, and um, so we're hopefully kickstarting that. On the left there, we have our knowledge holder, William Singer, just giving us a little background before we go out into the landscape and collect our Western science, giving us what he thinks, how we should proceed with the day, and then he opens it up with a blessing before we proceed. And then here we're collecting more rough fescue seed up in our timber limits. This area is the area that we're going to look at burning this spring. So there is some invasive grasses that have encroached into this land, and we're looking at ways to manage that and help our native species have that growing space. And then this is something that we do annually with our invasive species crew members, Nathan and Jared. Uh, right there would be Jared and Nathan. So we do a knapweed pull up there. There's knapweed that encroach from down south into our timber limits. And this is just the help that we've gotten from different jurisdictions and then different tribal departments. And then we do a timber limit cleanup where we every spring we'll get out there and pick the garbage. And then this is just some partner acknowledgments. I always miss a couple, but the Buffalo Treaty is kind of the foundation of our Iinii Rematriation. It was started with the Buffalo Dialogues and then plumed into the Buffalo Treaty, which has grown throughout the landscape. The Blackfoot Confederacy, we partner with them on a couple of native trout projects up in the headwaters and other areas of Blackfoot territory. Napi's Garden and Guttias Seed Bank, that's our seed collection and then growing our native seed to help our landscape. Waterton Lakes, their Nature Legacy Project, Kim Pearson, Matt Rantz, and Joseph Manyfingers have been helpful in training and then also just assisting us with what we need out on the landscape there. The Old Man Watershed Council, they help with our riparian areas and cabin protocol, number of water quality assessments. And without them, we'd only be able to get to a few. The Lethbridge Research and Development Center, they're helping with our soil core analysis. Yellowstone to Yukon funding, Alberta Eco Trust funding, Creekside Goat Company, they were the goat company we used in the past. The Mistucky Institute, they're helping with our Six-Stucky project. ECCC, we've got a multiple funding streams from them. Indigenous Visions Inc., Alberta Environment. Who else am I missing? I know I'm missing more, but yeah, that's kind of like the foundation of our project partners, and we're always looking to expand as we grow. We're hoping to get more people on staff so we could continually to grow our ecological monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alvin. Yeah, we can give a round of applause either with the emojis or clapping here, but thank you so much for your time. And Alvin, do you mind putting your video on now so we can see you, not just my face here? There we go. Yeah, that helps. So thank you so much. That was excellent and just so informative to see too, and how the blending of traditional and Western scientific knowledge and the partnerships you're working together on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So we have time for questions, and as Ian indicated, would love to see either you can just unmute yourself and speak, or you can put it in the chat box, but go for it now. Trying to see, I might miss a hand with the number of people on the presentation here. So maybe if you'd like, I think, Bea, would you like to speak?
Sorry, that was my bad.
Or you don't have a question?
Yes, no, thank you.
All right, perfect. Did I see Tracy McConaughey? You had a question? Rob found, and I'm doing a great job at this, aren't I? Rob, would you like to go?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you for that, Alvin. So I'm just curious about the use of beaver habitat modification analogs and why you wouldn't be letting just beavers do their own thing. Why you would be having, like, say, man-made dams that replicate and serve the same purpose of beavers rather than just letting beavers do it.
Because they're missing on the landscape. So to help rejuvenate these areas where they're void, where there's no beavers, we're utilizing their technique to help restore these landscapes and hopefully attract beavers by growing their food. We utilize willows and cottonwood trees that help fill the dams, and we're hoping that helps replenish that groundwater, helps replenish that tributary stream, whatnot, and gives them an incentive to move back into these areas where they're not they're not present at the moment. So that's the reason why is there are no beavers at that area. So we're not just picking streams where there's beavers. We actually are modeling it through the BRAT modeling system, and we go out there in ground truth to look and see if there are actually beavers present. If they're not, how can we help that stream get back to a natural process and help rejuvenate those groundwater and stream flows, because we're living in a drought, and a lot of our land occupants are missing that land or that water, and so we're trying to help them.
I get, yeah, thanks for that. I just have one follow-up question on that. Would you?
We'll keep it short because there's a few others.
All right, sorry.
No, that's fine.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
If you want, just reach out to me and I could answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Shannon Frank from the Old Man Watershed Council, you had a question about burning and how often do you burn to keep things healthy? Do you want to speak to that, Shannon?
Oh no, I could. She pretty much did. So yeah, we burn. We're trying to reintroduce that historical fire cycle. Prairie's burnt every like 5 to 10 years, and once we do get that natural cycle back to that historical trajectory, we'll try to burn within that time period of 5 to 10 years, depending on the severity of invasive species. Though. You may have to burn more. So you may have to burn once in the spring and the fall to help stress them out more, and then do your planting to help outcompete them in the upcoming spring. Just because after you burn, they'll send up multiple plant offshoots, and that will that's just their stress response, right? So if you hit that again, it stresses them out even more. And so this depends on the management objective for the ecosystem. But yeah, we're just trying to restore that historical fire interval.
Great. Thanks, Alvin. And thanks for that question, Shannon. I think Christian Artuzo, I saw you pop up next. Do you want to ask your question? You can turn your video on when you ask questions too. That might make it a little nicer.
Yeah, amazing, Alvin. Thank you so much for all of these presentations that you've given. I think I saw Kenzie on earlier. I don't know if Justin and the others are on, but the whole team is simply amazing work, and very inspiring to watch you guys. And my one quick question would be, if I understand correctly, the Band Council will give you permission to expand to more pastures after some period of time, and I'm just curious where you're at in that timeline and how it's going with convincing.
So we're on year 2, right? So they're giving us that 5-year period to see how that project grows and how we handle the buffalo on the landscape. So once they review that and we show the successes and the rejuvenation of the land and how it's healed the people. So we'll have to do interviews with the public to see what their feedback is, and then we can go back and create that narrative for our council, and then we could expand further north into those pastures across the highway.
Right. Thanks
Awesome.
for that question, Christian. Thanks, Alvin. I see one here from Tara Shelton. Great presentation. Just curious, what is it about the water quality that makes it unpalatable for animals?
Well, the pH level. was unacceptable. I think it was, there's a window, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but in that pasture 13, it was just over the threshold of the acceptable pH level. So getting that back down to, and it might just be the dugout that it just might be naturally high pH level. So it's an older dugout, and it's sat there for years and years, and it just needs to be worked with a little.
Great. Thanks. Are there other questions? You know what, Rob? How rudely of me. I saw all these things coming up and I thought they're a bunch. So do you want to ask your follow-up? Feel free to.
I guess my follow-up was really just if the issue was that there wasn't beavers available, but there was habitat that you would actually prefer to have beavers. I was just wondering if you had ever considered a reintroduction of beavers into some of those areas. Similar to how you did with bison from Elk Island, there are also surplus beavers in Elk Island.
So yeah, that's the one thing. Beavers are like, they're spiritually, like, we don't mess with them. In that sense, like bothering the actual beaver, moving them from one place to the other. In the Blackfoot way of life, we were given a gift from the beaver, and there's just some protocols that we would have to do, and we just haven't gotten that far to see if that's acceptable with our Blackfoot way of life. If you go up to Waterton, there's a story about how the beaver gave us the beaver bundle, and that is something that is very important to our people, and we don't disrespect that. So there's just some things, like, a lot of people won't break beaver dams. They won't touch wood that beaver have chewed and stuff like that. So there's just things that we'd have to follow before we could start reintroducing beavers into the landscape. Maybe we could get somebody from the outside to do it, but from a Blackfoot perspective, there's just certain protocols that we don't do.
Sure, thanks for that, Alvin, and thanks for that question. So there's another one from Caitlin McCabe. Are you working with any other First Nations and inviting them to visit the Iinii or participate in any of the actions you're doing?
So we are working with the other 3 nations of the Blackfoot Confederacy. Like, we do collaborate with them. Like I said, on the Native Trout Project, all 4 nations go out, do red surveys for the native trout species, bull and cutthroat trout, to look at their presence on the landscape. We've done eDNA, stream bank restoration projects in the headwater on both sides of the border. So we're utilizing our Blackfoot territory and making our presence felt in our landscape, because through treaty, we thought we were sharing the land, and that's something that we need to start getting back out on the landscape and ensuring our presence is felt within Blackfoot territory. So yeah, those 4 tribes we're collaborating with, and then we're always open to do other trainings. We've done participatory video trainings, and that was collaborative with the government of Alberta, and that was with Dene Tasso, Munson, and Biguni, and then the Samson Cree Nation up by Edmonton there, Musqueam. So we've done that type of collaborative work, and just we're starting to utilize participatory video to help document our stories on the landscape, and then help use it as a tool to create those narratives and that educational and awareness piece.
Right. Yeah, thank you. And I think Matt is maybe on the call today too. He was going to join as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Another question from Marissa King. Thank you. So thank you for the wonderful presentation. Have you had much success in reintroducing sweetgrass into the grasslands?
So we do grow it in the in the planter beds, and we do offer it to our alders. Like I grow a little patch in my front yard, so as long as we transplant it from the root system, we haven't had much success from the seeds, but if we transplant from the root system and then put it into the soil, and you keep it watered and monitor it, create that relationship with it, talk to it. I've been able to cultivate it throughout the season, like twice. I've been able to get nice braids from it. So yeah, you can be successful at it. You just gotta.
It's a little tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, you just gotta baby it.
Yeah.
Create that relationship with it.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? I'll make sure I don't miss any, just looking through for hands up, but it looks like it's fine. Okay. Well, thank you for these questions. And, I'm sure if you're sometimes like me, it's like a half hour after a presentation, I think, oh, I should have asked that. So if you want to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to connect you with Alvin, and we can follow on that conversation. So feel free to do that. And Alvin, thank you so much. This was great. And just so you all know, that we'll have 2 more sessions. I'm just finalizing the speaker for the March 8 webinar, but on, I think it's April 15th, Kate Hewitt from the Center for Indigenous Environmental Resources, who is also on this call, she will be sharing with us in April. So stay tuned. Check out our website at PHJV for some of the schedule as well. So anyway, enough from me. Thank you so much for coming, and most of all, Alvin, really appreciate your time this morning and the work you're all doing, and look forward to seeing more. So
yeah, thank you for everything.
Yeah. Okay, have a wonderful day, everyone.